Good morning. Does singing I Stand Amazed make everybody tap their feet, or is that just me? Then James and John, sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus and said, "Teacher, we want to ask you to do something for us." Jesus asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" They answered, "Let one of us sit at your right side, and one of us sit at your left side, in your glory and your kingdom." Jesus said, "You don't understand what you're asking. Can you drink the cup that I must drink? Can you be baptized with the same kind of baptism that I must go through?" And they answered, "Yes, we can." Jesus said to them, "You will drink the same cup that I will drink, and you will be baptized with the same baptism that I must go through. But I cannot choose who will sit at my right or my left. Those places belong to those for whom they have been prepared." And when the other 10 followers heard this, they began to be angry with James and John. Jesus called them together and said, "The other nations have rulers. You know that those rulers love to show their power over people, and their important leaders love to use all their authority. But it should not be that way among you. Whoever wants to become great among you must serve the rest of you like a servant. Whoever wants to become the first among you must serve all of you like a slave. In the same way, the Son of Man did not come to be served. He came to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many people." That story comes from Mark, the 10th chapter, and it's a lesson that Jesus teaches about power. You've probably all heard the famous quote that's attributed to Lord Acton, that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Some things that some other famous people had to say about power. Winston Churchill said, "The power of man has grown in every sphere except over himself." John Steinbeck said, "Power does not corrupt, fear corrupts, perhaps the fear of loss of power." Henry Kissinger called power the great aphrodisiac. And Abraham Lincoln said, "Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power." People love power. What is power exactly? How does it work? Who has it? In the world of 24-hour news headlines, power is the ability to influence or control other people's lives. It may be political power, financial power, spiritual power, or even star power, like an entertainer or a sports celebrity. Whatever kind it is, power thrives at the top of any given chain of command, where those who have it generally require bodyguards, tinted windows, and gated entrances. One sure sign that people have power is that other people desire to get close to them, to photograph them or to be photographed with them, or just to get their autograph. This fascination with power has been going on forever. It's just how the world works. George Bernard Shaw, the great Irish playwright, was once asked in what generation he would have preferred to live. He thought for a moment and then responded, "The age of Napoleon," because then there was only one man who thought he was Napoleon. I'll apologize in advance to Galen and April and Bob, but when I read that quote, I was reminded of a joke that we used to tell when I worked in the hospital. What's the difference between God and a doctor? God doesn't think he's a doctor. If it makes you feel any better, when I joined the Air Force, we told the same joke about fighter pilots. But most of us have an abiding hope that if only the right people can get into power and stay there without letting their power corrupt them, then the world will be a better place. That's why we campaign and vote for people, because we want them to sit at the head table and make good decisions for us. Too many times we find nothing changes except names and faces. The problems seem to stay the same. Perhaps that's because power does change people, especially if it's not coupled with a servant attitude. And many times those good men and women we elect are subject to the same temptations, the same problems, and the same weaknesses as those who went before them. Jesus likely felt just as you do when he asked by someone, "Do for me whatever I ask." We know the request is going to be a big one. And as it turns out, this was a huge request. The brothers want top-ranking cabinet positions. When the kingdom comes, they want to sit as close to Jesus as they can. In spite of the worry on the faces of the crowd milling about, in spite of the storm clouds gathering on the horizon, they are so sure of Jesus' final victory that they sign up to go all the way with him. And if you think about it, their request really isn't that unreasonable. After all, they've been the Messiah's chief assistants from the very start. Along with Peter, they are Jesus' closest friends, the ones he takes with them when he leaves the others at home. So it's natural for them to want to be near him. They seem willing to do whatever it takes. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink? Jesus asked them. Are you ready to be immersed into the persecution that I'm about to suffer? And although they, nor anyone else for that matter, understands fully what's coming, they respond in unison and without hesitation, we are able. Jesus attempts one more time to tell them how things are going to be. They seem to believe that the new world will be set up just like the old world, but with new leadership in place. You can almost hear one of the sons of thunder say to the other, "Did you hear that? Finally, we're going to get what's due to us. We're going to get 100 times the things we've left. We're going to be first in this future kingdom." Because Jesus had told them earlier in verses 29 through 31, "I tell you the truth, all those who have left houses, brothers, sisters, mother, father, children, or farms for me, and for the good news, will get more than they left. Here in this world, they will have 100 times more homes, brothers, sisters, mothers, children, and fields. Many who are first now will be last in the future, and many who are last now will be first in the future." Before we go any further in the story, there are some negative things that we could say about James and John. They were openly ambitious and proud. They wanted and they believed they deserved places of honor in Jesus' coming kingdom. Now, although they were somewhat ignorant and insensitive, we do find something positive about the brothers. They believed in Jesus. Here was a poor, homeless, persecuted son of a carpenter / itinerant preacher, and yet James and John believed Jesus was to be a king. Even their unpolished ambition reflected their faith in Jesus. And one more thing. Say what you want about the sons of thunder, but they were listening. They were focused on Christ's power, which had been evident from the very day they met him. They could sense it about him, this divine electricity. He had power, and whatever else might happen to him along the way into Jerusalem, they knew he was headed straight to the top, to glory. And as far as they were concerned, there was no one better for the job. You can't blame them for wanting to be with Jesus. "Teacher," they said to him, "we want you to do for us whatever we ask." The bad guys at the head table will be removed. Their chairs will be reupholstered, new carpets will be put down, and new leaders will be seated with Jesus in the number one position and the most loyal members of his campaign staff situated on either side of him. Once this change has been accomplished, then finally, at last, the good people will be able to start redeeming the world from top to bottom, beginning from the top down. It will be the ultimate trickle-down effect. But it doesn't work that way, Jesus tells them one more time. The new world is not even remotely like the old one. In fact, it turns the old one upside down. The great ones are not the powerful ones, having their pictures taken and seated at places of honor. They are the quiet ones who are slipping in and out among the guests, refilling their drinks, laying down clean silverware and napkins for the next course. The great ones are busy serving. The great ones are not the dignitaries to the left and the right of the ruler. They are the ones who are stirring the pots in the kitchen. The great ones are tasting and testing the soup so that it has the right flavor and temperature for the honored guests. John and James want Jesus to hurry up and become king. But Jesus has other things on his mind, like the portion of the statement they heard but didn't comprehend. "I came to give my life." Maybe we've heard this teaching so many times that it's all but lost on us. For Jesus is essentially saying the end of the line is the best place to be. I have a question for you. Has the Lord's concept been lost on you? And I ask myself the same question, has it been lost on me? Put yourself to this test sometime soon. Maybe later today when you're standing in line, maneuver your way to the back of that line. And the very minute that you find yourself going to the back of the line to be valued, the very minute that you realize that you're serving so as to be held in honor, well, get out of line because you just failed the test. You failed to understand the trickle-up effect. Service is not a top-down proposal, but a bottom-up plan. And you know as I do, the only successful way to think of this gospel story is to consider the lowliest job as the one to covet, to consider those who serve luckier than those in power. Maybe the two disciples thought, after hearing Jesus' statement, that the only way to make sense out of this great reversal, this from the bottom-up concept, was to think of life as some sort of intermediate stage, like a boot camp or a business training class. In essence, you do your time now as a servant with no whining, and you'll eventually win your seat in the kingdom to come. But again, Jesus answers, no, it doesn't work that way. Jesus tells them one more time, the Christ is not pretending to be a servant until the time comes for him to whip off his disguise and climb onto his throne. He is a servant through and through, now and forever. And one more thing, Jesus tells the sons of thunder, the good seats are not mine to give. Father is in charge of that. Instead, it is my sole pleasure to serve to the point of death. Jesus gives them an unforgettable roadside message. He is not in it for the reward. Jesus is teaching them what many young people have learned in their 4-H years. Young people who are in a 4-H club are usually those who are involved in some kind of rural or agricultural activity. They raise sheep and goats, chickens, rabbits, even llamas, and the annual 4-H fair has horse shows and dog shows and art shows and judging contests. They're all designed to encourage and measure the abilities of young people. And just as the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts have their well-known pledges, 4-H members also have a pledge of commitment. If I had slides this morning, you'd see behind me the 4-H logo, which is a 4-leaf clover with an H on each leaf. The 4-H motto is the reason for that logo and for the designation 4-H, because the 4-H's stand for head, heart, hand, and health. And a 4-H'er promises to pledge their head to clearer thinking, their heart to greater loyalty, their health to better living, and their hands to larger service. Now, this integration of head, heart, health, and hand might seem a little bit grandiose for a kid raising a goat or a puppy, but as a spiritual goal for integrating all the various components of our lives, it's right on track. James and John's plotting and planning appears almost embarrassingly transparent to our 21st century savvy mentality and sensibility. But for their day, these brothers have it all figured out. They hit Jesus up before he's been acknowledged by the world, by the principalities and powers as the messianic figure. At this early date, the brothers may have reasoned there must yet be opening seats at the table in glory. Why not, they think, ask for the best seats in the house at the right and left hand of the Messiah himself? Why not get in on the ground floor? But Jesus is not in it for the reward. He is in it for the love of God, which promises him nothing but the opportunity to give himself away. The best seat he will get this side of the grave is a throne full of splinters, the only crown one of thorns, and the only scepter will be the nails that pierce his hands and his feet. When he is hung between heaven and earth by the powers that be, it will not be James and John on either side of him, but two unnamed criminals, one on his left and one on his right. And if we fail to understand the spiritual implications of this story, we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves. Few have, at least not at first. Not Peter, not Matthew, not Thomas, not any of the others who were nearest and dearest to him. And if we think we do understand any better than the 12 did, it's only because we have these stories on which to base our lives. Now, this servant kind of model is a bit of a mystery, but the heart of today's message is simple. Keep trying to incorporate the Jesus servant model into your head, your heart, and your hands. And no matter how much of a mystery this great reversal seems, serving is how we will transform our church, our community, and eventually the world, not from the top down, but from the bottom up. It's the ultimate trickle-up effect. Our leaders should be servants, and the best ones will be. And the power God has given us is the strongest good in the world, the power to serve, which is the power to turn the Zebedee brothers' question upside down. Teacher, we want to do for you whatever you